Let's see, this is a recap for the last month, July. I did 18 videos, which is less than last month, which were, I think I did around 21, but that's okay. I don't really try to maximize numbers of videos. This is more of just me trying to look back at my month and to see how much I have been able to do in just my own consumption life. So I made 8 videos on music, 3 on film, 6 books, redoing the intro and a time video on the Wikipedia thing on time. So let's go through what I did. First off, Atakak Obaa Sima from '94. This is a Ghanaian dance music record made by this guy who's from Ghana, and then he moved to Canada, and then he was making music in his little apartment in Toronto, I think, and then somehow his mixtape or his album or whatever made its way through Africa, and some guy, some music nerd or something found it, and then found it so fascinating, so he tried to track down Atakak, and that's where you get this album. It's really interesting and amazing, I think. Very definitely worth checking out because I don't know much of Ghanaian dance music, and this guy really takes a lot of inspiration from Ghana as well as other African types of music to really create his own style, and nothing really sounds like it, especially his voice. Something about his voice is just so special. I made 2 videos on film. The first one is kind of an exploration of what I think makes movies, what makes a good movie. Because the thing is, I grew up, I get these questions a lot, and because I've seen lots of films, like a few thousand films, so I always get asked like what I think a good movie is or whatever, and I talk about all my life thoughts and whatever, all that in that video. I think it's very interesting and really elucidates a lot of my opinions and beliefs about art as well as film. And then I made a video on my 20 favorite movies. You'll see kind of my taste in film is kind of all over the place, but specifically I am very fascinated with international historical dramas that really go into the history of a country of sorts in terms of colonization or whatever. Like one of my favorite films, for example, is A Brighter Summer Day from '91, which goes back to the history of Taipei in the '60s, or I think '60s, especially in the youth culture when Japan was colonizing Taiwan. Like the historical nature of it isn't necessarily what ties me to it, but it does. I love movies that really transport me in time and place, and nothing can be better than one of those. And next, I did a video on Terrence McKenna's True Hallucinations from '93. Terrence McKenna is very famous in the psychedelic world because he's the person who really introduced psychedelic mushrooms, into the mainstream United States culture. And this book kind of detailed his exploration of how he found these mushrooms. So, he was in his early 20s. He was a scientist, and he's like an ethnobiologist or one of those people. And in his early 20s, he went with a bunch of his friends and scientists and his younger brother to the Amazon to find this mysterious plant that is supposed to create these mystical experiences. And he was looking for this plant called the ukuhe, which he doesn't necessarily find there, but then he does find lots of psilocybin cubensis mushrooms, and that's what really he they end up taking a lot of them, and he kind of detailed his mystical experiences in the book. It's very fascinating. I really liked reading it. Next was XXL. I did another XXL video. This is a Lil Pump video. Honestly, like, I did like the album. I think some of the music. The thing about Lil Pump I find very fascinating is that it's so repetitive to the extreme of sorts that it isn't. In my opinion, I don't find it necessarily in other forms of music. In terms of rap music, I mean, it is very common right now, but he takes it to another extreme, I think, in a way that's very similar, I guess, to like trance music. So I kind of make this connection between the trance like effects of Lil Pump's music, as perhaps it's like a way of elucidating the experiences of certain kinds of drugs, maybe like lean or Xanax or all those things that are really popular right now. Maybe the repetition of Lil Pump's music is meant to mirror that kind of feeling of that the drug gives you in a similar way that electronic dance music was trying to replicate ecstasy and all that stuff, and dissociatives like ketamine. Next is Years and Years Palo Santo. This is another project by what's the name of the guy from Years and Years? Honestly, I don't remember, but he's quite Ollie Alexander, yeah. So one of his new projects, it's a pop album. I did enjoy it. I think that it is maybe not as wild and experimental as I would have liked from. Well, I don't know. It's a big improvement for me personally from their last album, and it's definitely a worthwhile listen, and it's very interesting production. Let's see. I made a video about 5 other albums I've been listening to. I don't remember what I have on this, but based on the title, I have Drake's new album. It's like an hour and a half, and then I have Danny Brown. I think Black and Blue, or one of those. It's like a collab album he did a couple of years ago. Chopin, I listened to his etudes. So I talk about that in the video. Next is I watched the first two in the series of Up videos for Japan. I've seen 28 Up of the UK, the original series, and I watched the first two episodes of the Japan 7 Up and 14 Up. And it's interesting because these kids are the people who were heavily influenced by the what they call the lost decade of Japan, which is the economic decline in the 90s, and you can really see how that plays a role in Japanese living situations and how they think about life and how they perceive their futures. It's very interesting. I redid the channel intro because whatever. The last one was kind of weird. I rewatched it. It was like weird and whatever. Then I did a video on Seneca's Letters from Stoic, which I really think is a book I really highly recommend to anyone. Like, you don't have to watch my video, I don't really care. But like, read this the book. It's like a collection of letters from Seneca to this guy named Lucilius, who he just kind of writes in a way that elucidates his Stoic philosophy. Stoicism. He's one of the biggest writers of Stoic philosophy. And I'm not sure if you're very familiar with Stoic philosophy anyway, but like, very interesting, I think. Next, I did two more XXL videos, J.I.D and YB and Nahmir. I don't know what much to say. J.I.D's album was, people are comparing it to Kendrick Lamar. I don't think that comparison's very apt. So the thing was, I went into the album thinking that it's going to be a new Kendrick Lamar, and then I came out of it thinking, like, I didn't know, I kind of prefer Section 80, or I don't know if you even consider Section 80 as his first album. I don't think he does. So if you compare it to, like, Good Kid, Mad City, like, hard to compare, And J.I.D, he's very good, though. He has an interesting flow, and a lot of songs in the album have very good hooks. I really like the song Somebody, for example, and he definitely has an interesting perspective, which I think I don't necessarily learn that much from the album. But I think he has high potential. YB and Nahmir, I think, has high potential as well. However, it is not really shown that much in the mixtape. I think he's much improved since the mixtape. This is a mixtape from 2017, around the same time J.I.D's album came out from last year. J.I.D also I found very much improved from his recent work in the freshman list. YB and Nahmir, I think he has a potential. I like his voice. J.I.D's voice is kind of weird, but you get used to it. YB and Nahmir has a very interesting cadence, I think. I mean, flow, not really flow, but like his voice has an interesting quality to it that I kind of like. And he has an interesting perspective. I know people like make fun of the whole GTA thing, but he's okay. Next, I made a favorites video, one of my favorite albums. I might be doing a couple of these I was just thinking, I was just thinking what to do, and I thought, oh, I love Arthur Russell's World of Echo, and no, I don't think anyone talks about it. Let me talk about it for a few minutes. One of my favorite albums, Arthur Russell. He's more popular for his disco tunes in the 80s, 70s and 80s, but he was going through different aliases. But what's very fascinating for me about Arthur Russell is that he went through so many different genres and things, and I'm reading his biography right now. He's so cool. Like, he went through so many genres, and he had his hand in so many scenes in New York at the time in ways that are not necessarily evident retrospectively, but in the moment of sorts, he was such an influential figure. And this is an amazing album because he does it with cello and voice only. So he does a cello, he sings it with. So the music is such a unique flavor to it because I've never heard. I don't know anyone who's just does cello and voice in terms of. I'm sure there are, but I'm not familiar with them. And he does this very cello and voice, and then he kind of manipulates the cello sounds. It's very experimental, and I love the album. Next, I did a video on Deafheaven's Ordinary Corrupt Human Love. This is an album from this year. It's a Deafheaven album, and from the video I talk about how I'm not very familiar actually with Deafheaven. This is my first Deafheaven album. I listened to some of Sunbather before, but I found it too hard to listen to because I just wasn't ready yet for that. But Deafheaven is, I think the album is one of my favorite of the year. Definitely my top 3 or something. Like, I know some people don't like it as much as I do, for example, but that's okay. I did really much enjoy the album, and it was very, I had goosebumps all the way through. It's a black gaze album, which is I think it's black metal and shoegaze, and I'm a big shoegaze fan, if you can even call it shoegazing a genre. It's kind of dream pop, but anyway, last thing, I don't want to get through that. I read Crime and Punishment by Dostoyevky. It's a book that I read over 2 weeks, and I read a little bit every day, and I really spread it out. I made 4 videos on it because I really wanted to put all my thoughts, I guess 3 videos on it. I really wanted to put all my thoughts on, and I wanted to record all my thoughts in the book. Up to now, I can still go on about it for hours. It's a book that really affected me very personally, and I still think about it every single day since finishing the book. It's a book about a guy who believes that he wants to test whether or not he is a special person, and if in his idea of things, a special person is someone who does not necessarily have any moral considerations in terms of when they want to achieve their goals. They don't look at any, they're kind of beyond morals and laws, in terms of they subjugate them to the idea. It's looking for, I guess, for me, I've never heard it described this way, but this is how I really saw it. It was like this idea about this person who realizes that many of the people who do great things in the world subjugate everything else to the idea, to the goal, and only those people are able to really progress society in a certain way. And I think it's very fascinating because he's someone who says, well, I wonder if I'm one of those people, and he has to test it out in the most extreme sorts of sense. So he says, well, I'm gonna try to kill someone, and if I'll try to see if I can be someone who, in terms of any, he kind of purports a certain idea, and then he tries to murder someone to see if he has like the propensity to do whatever it takes to pursue an idea and to subjugate other things to an idea. So he does the worst of things, and then the book is mostly the. So that's really a little bit part of the book is the murder, but then the rest of the book is about how he his bodily response and emotional response and psychological response to having killed a woman or two women. But it's very fascinating, and it really brought a bunch of philosophical things that really captivated me, and I really enjoyed reading the book. The last video, well, this is kind of not the last one, but I made this. So I was like on Wikipedia, and I saw like I somehow stumbled. I remember one person. I'm the kind of person who loves going on Wikipedia because I learned so many things from it. I used to get teased when I was a kid because I would say the most inane facts or whatever because from random things, and I knew everything about every movie I saw because I'd read everything about it on Wikipedia. I read the whole page, as well as music. So I had a lot of like knowledge in my head about the things I consume. I just had a lot of stock knowledge. Anyways, I love Wikipedia. I learned so much about it, and so I saw the Wikipedia page of time, and it was so long, and I was like, okay, that might be fun. Like, what is there that the world has really condensed in terms of knowledge with regards to the concept of time? So I kind of went through the whole thing on camera, just to kind of. As the thing is, I wouldn't usually go through a whole page like time, but then I really wanted to motivate myself to do it because I thought I would learn a lot about time and different perspectives on time, and it's such a weird topic. I might do some on space, maybe space and other kind of more general topics I feel are quite interesting, maybe quantum physics or something, I don't know. But I learned so much from the video. If you're even interested, you should check it out.